Strange people, UFOs, and mothers returning to claim their children. Here are 8 strange disappearances. On January 25, 2006, the husband of 35-year-old Teresa Butler returned to his home in Missouri after working the night shift and discovered that his wife was missing and their 2 sons were home alone. Her car was still at the house and there were no signs of struggle or forced entry. The kids could not shed any light on what had happened to her. Teresa's purse and cell phone were missing, as well as a lot of other items from the house, including a PlayStation, video camera, and car stereo. However, her jewelry and clothes were left behind. Things got even more bizarre when authorities discovered that 2 calls had been made from Teresa's phone shortly after she disappeared, from numbers in 2 different towns in Missouri. The person at the first number never answered the phone, while the second claimed they heard nothing on the line. Neither of these people had ever heard of Teresa Butler and don't have any information about her disappearance. There are still no answers in this puzzling case, and no trace of Teresa has ever been found. On November 21, 1987, Karina Sagers-Malinowski, a 26-year-old woman from Mount Holly, South Carolina, disappeared when she did not show up for work, and her car was found parked in front of the Mount Holly plantation. The most interesting part of the story, however, is that on October 4, 1988, Karina's 8-year-old daughter, Annette Sagers, was on her way to school and went to the bus stop in front of the Mount Holly plantation, and she mysteriously vanished as well. Things got even stranger when a note was found at the bus stop which read, "Dad, Mama come back, give the boys a hug." Handwriting experts determined that Annette most likely wrote the note. It's been speculated that Annette's mother may have returned to get her daughter so that they could disappear together, but she left 2 sons behind, probably the boys in the note, and no one in their family has heard from either of them in years. In October 1978, Australian pilot and alleged UFO enthusiast Frederick Valentik was flying his plane over Australia's Bass Strait when he contacted Melbourne's air traffic control to report that an unidentified flying object was intermittently tracking him, stopping in midair and vanishing. The last thing he can be heard saying before his transmission was interrupted by white noise is, "It's hovering and it's not an aircraft." No trace of Valentik or his plane has ever been found. In March of 2011, while working as a crew member on the cruise ship Disney Wonder, which was in the Pacific Ocean at the time, Rebecca Coriam vanished without a trace. A security camera in the crew lounge showed her in distress during a phone conversation, but that is the last evidence of her existence. Many of her co-workers are said to believe that she went overboard and that the Disney company knows more than it's admitting. Since her disappearance, Coriam's credit card has been used and someone allegedly changed her Facebook password. What remains unclear is whether she's alive or dead. Similar to Frederick Valentik's story, in 1953, Lieutenant Felix Moncla was stationed at Kinross Air Force Base in Michigan. An unidentified flying object appeared on radar, and Moncla took an F-89 Scorpion interceptor to investigate. Ground radar operators reported that Moncla's aircraft flew at about 500 miles per hour and closed in on the object while crossing northern Lake Superior from west to east at 7,000 feet. At this time, operators claimed that on the radar, Moncla's aircraft merged with the UFO, at which point they both disappeared. A search and rescue found nothing. No debris or wreckage was ever found from either aircraft. Canadian aviation authorities have since maintained that there were no planes in the sky at the time of the mysterious merger. The MV Joyita, like the Titanic, was considered unsinkable. Nevertheless, the ship sank with all of the 25 passengers and crew members missing, 37 days after a 2-day run to Tokelau on October 3, 1955. The Joyita disappeared somewhere in the South Pacific, and when it was found, the ship was missing 4 tons of cargo, including medical supplies, timber, food, and empty oil drums. The radio was tuned to the International Marine Distress Signal. All of the lifeboats were gone, and blood-stained bandages were found. Since no distress signal ever went out, it is possible that the 25 people died one by drowning or being eaten by sharks. Whatever happened to the passengers who left in the lifeboats is still a mystery. On March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 disappeared while flying from Kuala Lumpur International Airport, Malaysia, to Beijing Capital International Airport in China. What is known is that at some point the plane's transponder was manually turned off and the flight changed paths sharply. During this time, no cell phone calls were placed by scared passengers or crew, no distress signals were sent out by the pilots, and not a shred of wreckage has ever been found. Also adding to the mystery is the fate of the black box. This indestructible flight recorder never alerted authorities. Usually the device will continue to ping information for 30 days after a crash or explosion. The fact that this plane's box went completely missing is yet another anomaly. Conspiracies continue to persist, from the possibility that the Chinese hijacked the plane and flew it at a low altitude to avoid radar detection, to a hijacking via remote cyber terrorism. Recently, a student claimed to have spotted the plane using satellite images. Philadelphian Dorothy Cooper Forstein was a happily married, loving mother and well-liked. She was one of the last people anyone would imagine as a victim of one of the creepiest disappearances in American history. One evening in 1944, Miss Forstein dropped her children off at a neighbor's house so she could do some shopping. By the time she returned home, it was nearly dark. As she entered her house, someone suddenly attacked her, beating her into unconsciousness. Her fall knocked over the telephone, and when the operator heard strange noises coming from the other end, she alerted the police. Miss Forstein was found with her nose and jaw broken and a shoulder fractured. She was also suffering from a concussion. After she regained consciousness, all she could say was, "Someone jumped out at me." Investigators were baffled by the crime. Burglary could not have been a motive, as nothing in the house had been taken. Her husband had an alibi, and she had no known enemies. The assault remained a mystery, and Miss Forstein recovered from her injuries. 5 years went by, and life for the Forstein family gradually returned to normal. On the night of October 18, 1949, Miss Forstein and the younger children spent a routine evening at home. Around 9 p.m., Dorothy called a friend to arrange for the two of them to take a shopping trip the next day. She showed no sign she suspected anything was wrong. When Mr. Forstein returned home at about 11:30 p.m., he found young Edward and Marcy, the children, cowering in an upstairs bedroom. "Mommy's gone," they told him. Officers then made a search all over Philadelphia without finding any sign of the missing woman. Her purse and keys were still at home. As with the earlier attack, nothing from the house was taken. The front door had still been locked. The daughter told police that on the night her mother vanished, she was awakened by the sound of someone entering the house. When she went out in the hall to investigate, she saw a strange man coming upstairs. Her mother was lying face down on the floor of her bedroom, resting. She saw this man pick the dazed or unconscious Dorothy up and carry her downstairs. Marcy asked him, "What are you doing?" He replied, "Go back to sleep, little one. Your mother is all right." He patted Marcy on the head and walked out with Mrs. Forstein's limp body still slung over his shoulder. About 15 minutes later, she said, her father returned home. Thank you for watching. If you liked, subscribe, like, and share, and leave me ideas for future videos in the comments. Thanks.